The October night air was crisp and cold as Jacob made his way across the dimly lit campus. As a junior at Westwood University, he was used to late-night walks to the Kappa Sigma fraternity house after a raucous evening of drinking and debauchery. But this time something was wrong, a palpable sense of unease he couldn't shake. Jacob pulled his sweatshirt tighter around him and quickened his stride as he made his way through the shady paths. The usual drunken laughter and music from the fraternity was eerily absent, replaced by an unsettling silence that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand on end. As he approached the towering Victorian-style building, he noticed that the front door was slightly ajar and light was shining through it. "Weird," he muttered to himself and froze for a moment before carefully pushing the door open and stepping inside. The foyer was dark except for the flickering of the single overhead light fixture. Jacob called out, his voice echoing through the empty space. "Hello? Are you guys here?" There was no response. Jacob headed for the common room, his footsteps creaking on the worn parquet. As he rounded the corner, the scene before him made his blood run cold. His fraternity brothers, all 20 of them, lay motionless on the floor, their lifeless eyes staring blankly into the distance. Jacob gasped in horror, his heart hammering in his chest, and he staggered backward, desperate to get away from the nightmarish sight. But his retreat was cut short as a figure emerged from the shadows, blocking his path. It was Brad, the president of Kappa Sigma, his once handsome facial features now contorted in an evil grin. "Welcome back, Jacob," Brad said, malice in his voice. "We've been waiting for you." Jacob tried to make sense of the horrifying situation. "What the hell happened here?" he demanded, his voice shaking with fear. "Who did this?" Brad let out a chilling chuckle. "Don't you see, Jacob? We're the ones who did it. We're the ones who killed them." Jacob stared at him in bewilderment. "What are you talking about? Why did you do it?" "Because we had to do it," Brad replied, his eyes flashing with an unsettling gleam. "We had to purge the house of the unworthy, the weak. Only the strong will survive." Jacob felt a wave of nausea wash over him as it hit him. "You're all part of some sick cult, aren't you?" Brad nodded, his smile widening. "That's right, Jacob. And now it's your turn to join us." Before Jacob could react, Brad lunged forward, his hands closing around Jacob's throat. Jacob struggled against the iron grip, clawing at Brad's hands as he was slowly strangled. The moment his vision began to blur, Brad loosened his grip and Jacob collapsed to the floor, panting. "Welcome to the Brotherhood, brother," Brad said, malice in his voice. "It's time for your initiation." The next few hours passed in agony and terror for Jacob. He was blindfolded, bound, and subjected to a series of gruesome rituals, chanting, bloodletting, and a grueling endurance test that left him physically and mentally exhausted. When the ordeal was finally over, Jacob was led into a dimly lit room where the other Kappa Sigma brothers awaited him. They greeted him with mesmerizing, synchronized singing, and in that moment Jacob realized there was no escape. Over the next few weeks, Jacob was forced to participate in the cult's increasingly depraved activities, from ritual sacrifices to acts of unspeakable violence. He tried to resist, to reason with his brothers, but they were all captive to the cult's twisted ideology. As the days turned into months, Jacob's sense of self began to erode, replaced by a growing sense of hopelessness and despair. He became a prisoner in his own home, a pawn in an incomprehensible game. One night, as the sect gathered for another gruesome ceremony, Jacob felt a surge of desperate determination. He realized that he had to escape or risk being lost forever in the darkness that had engulfed his brotherhood. With trembling hands, he managed to free himself from his shackles and made his way to the exit. Jacob ran through the deserted streets, his lungs burning and his heart pounding in his chest. But just when he thought he had finally broken free, he heard the ominous sound of footsteps behind him. When he turned around, he saw Brad and several other cult members chasing him, their faces contorted with anger. Jacob rushed to escape, making his way through the shadowy alleyways, his mind racing with panic. But just when he thought he could get away, he stumbled and fell, hurting his leg. He screamed in pain as the cult members caught up with him, their grinning faces looming over him. "Did you really think you could get away from us, Jacob?" Brad grinned. Brad grinned, his eyes sparkling with perverse amusement. "You're one of us now. You'll never be free." Jacob's heart pounded in his chest as the cult members surrounded him, their contorted faces illuminated by the dim streetlight. He tried to rise to his feet, but a sharp pain in his ankle told him it was broken. Trapped and at their mercy, he realized his only option was to beg for his life. "Please," he begged, his voice shaking. "I won't tell anyone, I swear. Just let me go, and I'll forget this ever happened." But the expression on Brad's face remained cold and impassive. "You know too much, Jacob. You've seen the truth, and now you have to pay for it." The other members of the cult began to approach him, holding out their hands toward him. Jacob squeezed his eyes shut, preparing for the inevitable. Suddenly, there was a loud rumble in the alley, followed by the sound of squealing tires. When Jacob opened his eyes, he saw a police car coming toward them, its siren blaring. The cult members scattered, hiding in the shadows, when the car stopped. Two policemen with guns at the ready stepped out of the car, and Jacob felt a wave of relief wash over him. He'd been saved, or so he thought. As the officers approached, Jacob noticed something odd in their demeanor. Their movements were jerky and unnatural, and there was a strange, blank expression in their eyes. In an instant, the realization hit him. These weren't real police officers, but cult members. "No," Jacob sighed, his voice barely audible. "This can't be happening." The false cops were advancing, aiming their guns at him. Jacob realized he had no chance of escaping, and even with a broken ankle, he braced himself for the end, resigned to the fact that his nightmare would never end. As the officers approached him, a sudden unearthly howl pierced the night air, causing everyone to freeze. Jacob's eyes widened. A massive, shadowy figure emerged from the darkness, its glowing red eyes fixed on the cult members. The false officers opened fire, but their bullets seemed to have no effect on the creature towering above them. With a deafening roar, it pounced on one of the officers, and its powerful jaws tore him to pieces. The remaining officer turned to flee, but the beast was too fast. It leaped forward, sank its teeth into the man's neck, and he fell to the ground, his agonized screams echoing through the alley. Jacob watched in horror as the creature continued its merciless slaughter of the remaining cult members. When the last of them lay dead, the monster turned its gaze to him, its eyes glowing with primal hunger. Jacob realized that this was the end. He had escaped one nightmare, but he faced an even worse one. As the beast approached, Jacob closed his eyes, resigned to his fate. But instead of feeling the creature's jaws closing around him, he heard a strange rumbling sound. He cautiously opened his eyes and, to his amazement, saw that the beast was backing away, staring at something in the distance. With a final, chilling howl, it disappeared into the shadows, leaving Jacob alone, battered and bruised, but miraculously alive. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, Jacob realized that his ordeal was far from over. The cult had been defeated, but the real horror was just beginning. He had been sucked into a world of darkness and evil, and there was no telling what unspeakable horrors awaited him. With a heavy heart, Jacob rose to his feet and began the long, painful journey back to the Brotherhood, knowing he would never be the same again.